Dynamics of personal change and development. Discourse on free will. Part 1. The nature of free will. Already referred in the volume 1 of Strive to Truth, page 53 to 54, our pieces of original thinking unite. So far as this writer knows, in the volume's literature on this topic, both Jewish and general. 1. The process of free choice. Let us try to analyze a typical choice such as we often make in everyday life. To take for example someone who smokes too many cigarettes, so many in fact that he wakes up at night with severe pains in the chest. When he is in pain, he makes up his mind not to smoke the next day under any circumstances. He realizes it is just not worth it. When he gets up the next morning, his addiction soon makes itself felt, and he experiences a strong craving for tobacco. At first, he resists the temptation, but it grows stronger with every passing minute. Eventually, he noticed him saying to himself, "I'll just smoke this one. One cigarette can hurt me." Soon after he has smoked the first one, he again feels the urge to smoke, and once more he tells himself, "After all, just one more cigarette can't do any harm." So he goes on smoking all day, and during the night he has the pains again. And the next day, although he knows quite well if he allows himself one smoke, the same chain reaction will set in. He is still prepared to deceive himself in the same way. Subterfuge. Now, if he were faced merely with the stark alternatives, to smoke and have the pain, or not to smoke and not have the pain, there can be little doubt which he will choose. The will not to suffer the pain will easily overcome the will to smoke. How does the weaker will prevail? Simply by means of the subterfuge we noted above. We are entitled to ask, what causes the person to adopt a fallacious argument? One cigarette can hurt, and ignore the correct one. One will lead to another, which he knows as well as anyone else to be correct. Can it be the will to smoke itself taking over the reason process? But surely the will to smoke is less strong than the will not to have the pain. This must be so, as we saw above. For if not, why the self-deception? He could just smoke in the full knowledge that it is going to hurt later on. Something else. We are led to the conclusion that there must be something else, other than the two contending wills that determines his choice. This something else is none other than the person himself. He is the one who is capable of deflecting his mind from the truth, even though this truth is perfectly clear to him. He is one who decides to adapt the fallacious argument in order to cover up his deviation from the truth. There are two competing wills in the mind, and he deliberately decides to ignore the claims of one and their true argument in advances, and to adopt the other together with his fallacious argument. What includes him to do this? Not the competing wills, but the freely choosing person himself. He could say to himself, "Look here, what's the point of pretending? Pretense is not reality. And if I go that way, I will end up with severe pains in the right." If he does this, he will refrain from smoking, so he has no one be blamed but himself. The essence of Behira. How foolish are those who think that the weaker will, by and of itself, causes the person to adopt the fallacy, knowing very well that it is fallacy. They fail to explain why the stronger will does not include the person to adopt the true argument which he is well aware of. The fact is that a human being can grasp hold of the truth, in which case the weaker will depart with all its illusory arguments, or he can deliberately ignore the truth to accept falsehood in its place, rejecting the will which has truth on its side. These two alternatives are the subject matter of Behira, or free choice. Behira depends on the persons alone. There is no outside cause involved. The prime cause is the person himself. This is well known to anyone who has even once exercised his Behira and conquered his evil inclination. Such a person feels with the utmost clarity that he has requested illusion and opted for the truth, reality of Behira. But someone who has never made the necessary effort to subdue the evil side of his nature will never be able to understand this. He has always given into his will as soon as it presents itself, and he therefore believes himself to be at the mercy of the stronger will at all times. He cannot appreciate the reality of Behira, because he has never in fact made a Behira. He is therefore under the illusion that all human actions are subject to external causes, To those who deny the reality of free will, we therefore say, your philosophy is merely a reflection of your own heart. You deny free will because you are in fact unfree. You have enslaved yourselves to the evil within you. 2. The Behira point. When two armies are locked in battle, fighting takes place only at the battlefront. Territory behind the lines of an army is under that army's control, and little or no resistance need to be expected there. A similar situation prevails in respect on territory behind the lines of the other army. If one side gains a victory at the front and pushes the enemy back, the position of the battlefront will have changed in fact. Therefore, fighting takes place only at one location. True, potentially the line could be drawn anywhere in the territories of the two contending countries. The moral battlefront. The situation is very similar with regard to Behira. Everyone has free choice at the point where truth meets falsehood. In other words, Behira takes place at that point where the truth, as the person sees it, confronts the illusion produced in him by the power of falsehood. But the majority of a person's actions are undertaken without any clash between truth and falsehood taking place. Many of a person's actions may happen to coincide with what is objectively right because he has been brought up that way, and it does not occur to him to do otherwise. And many bad and false decisions may be taken simply because the person does not realize that they are bad. In such cases, not valid Behira in choice has been made. Free will is exercised, and valid Behira made only on the borderline between the forces of good and the forces of evil with that person. Fluid front. It must be realized that this Behira point does not remain static in any given individual. With each good Behira successfully carried out, the person rises higher in spiritual level. That is, things that were previously in the line of battle are now in the area controlled by the Yetzer HaTov, and actions done in that area can be undertaken without struggle and without Behira. In this sense, we can understand the saying that one mitzvah leads to another, and so in the other direction, giving to the Yetzer Hara pushes back the frontier of the good, and an act which previously caused one struggle with one's conscience will now be done with Behira at all. The Yetzer HaTov is no longer functioning effectively in that area, and so we have learned one sin leads to another. Avot 2:4-2. and as soon as one has committed a sin twice, it is no longer a sin for him. Yoma 86. Environment and Behira. As we have said, education plays a large part in determining one's Behira point. A person may have been brought up to do many good actions as a matter of course. All this means that his Behira point is at a high level. For example, one may have been brought up in an environment of Torah, among people who devote themselves to good deeds. In this case, his Behira point will not be whether or not to commit an actual sin, but whether to do a mitzvah with more or less devotion and kavanah. Another may be brought up among doers of the lowest grade, among the thieves and robbers. For him, whether or not to steal does not present any Behira at all. His Behira point might be on the question of shooting his way out when discovered. For him, this may be the crucial Behira. This is where for him the forces of good and evil, truth and untruth, and evenly balanced. It may well be that murder is something that he knows in his heart of hearts to be wrong. This is the truth as revealed to him by his Yetzer Atov, and it is this truly that he is tempted to deny or distort. So we see that education and environment cannot in any way change the essential act of Behira, but only the location at which it takes place, the position of Behira point on the moral scale. Every human being possesses the power of perceiving the truth available to him at his particular level, declining to do it and refusing to be deflected from it by the seductive illusions of falsehood. In this, there is no difference at all whether it is up-browning, rise, or lower his Behira point. The ability to adopt the truth as he knows it is equal in all situations. Point location. To sum up, everyone has free choice at his Behira point, but the position of the Behira point itself is determined by various factors. This may be affected by his own previous choices, which may have rise or lower his Behira point, or it may be affected by factors outside his control. Divine providence may have placed him from childhood in a certain environment, higher or lower as the case may be, to gain some inkling of why God arranges matters so that some have the Behira on one level and some and another. Read carefully what we have written in the essay. Why do righteous suffer? There is thus no free choice except at the point of the free choice, and this point is fixed by antecedent factors. But there are no outside factors which can affect the act of Behira itself. Here the human being himself reigns supreme. Choosing life. If we are prepared to read a little more deeply than usual, we can see this idea clearly expressed in the Torah, in the passage dealing with human choice, Deuteronomy 30:19. I have put before you life and death, the blessing and the curse. Choose life, so that you may live. Life and death compromise all that the person is given, all the facets of a person's character, his inborn traits and tendencies, his upbringing and environment. All those factors which determine what he calls life, what presents itself to him as good and true, and a quality that he calls death, evil and falsehood. All these things I have put before you. Literally, I have given before you. These are the given of human situation. They exist independently of any actions on our part, like all other features of our environment. But you shall choose life. Choosing life, choosing truth and reality, is something which only the human being himself can do, and which he does without being affected by an outside factor whatsoever. The fear of heaven. This is also the meaning of that famous saying of our rabbis, Berachot 33b. All is from heaven except the fear to heaven. All is from heaven. All that befalls a person, everything that determines where his choice shall take place, the level of his Behira, as well as the kind to test to which he will be submitted, all this is from heaven. The only thing in man's hands is the fear of heaven, which is the sense of responsibility to the truth, which can either adopt or reject as he wills. The fear of heaven, the fear of Hashem, whether the fear of material consequences or fear and awe of higher levels, is essential to prevent one being deflected from the truth. This is the essence of Behira. 3. Responsibility. We saw above that a person's level of Behira can be changed by outside factors and by the person's previous choices, but there is a great difference between these. When the level is changed by the woman's choice, by the person's own choices, he is liable of the new situation that has developed. The Talmud says, if a person commits a sin and repeats it, it becomes permitted to him. Permitted? Not it seems to him to be permitted. Yoma 86b. He had not struggled the third time. Apparently Behira, as we define it, was not in operation, but he is nevertheless responsible for the act every time, for he himself was the cause of his blunted sensibilities. From now on, he will be punished every time he does the act which no longer presents itself to him as a live choice. But no one is held responsible for the evil to which he is accused from birth and as a result of his environment, never having learned by better. In this respect, he has the halachic status of a child taken captive and brought up among idolaters. Shabbat 68b. He will be held responsible only for that which he could and should have learned. Long-term effects. Every Bechira exercised by a person has some effect on his entire situation during the whole of his life, if good, good, and if bad, bad, and not only of himself alone. It may also have an effect on the way he influences his children with incalculable results. In short, every Bechira has an effect on the entire world, and the chooser is responsible for all its results. And so with each person and with each Bechira of each person, how much good can be earned by one good Bechira, and how great the responsibility for one bad one. For one bad one. 4. Education and elevation. It follows from all we have said out above that the merits of a person are not those mitzvot and good deeds to which he has been trained, but only his free acts of Bechira. The good acts he has been brought up to do are not his own. They merely serve to set the position of his Bechira point. Whatever reward is due must go to those who brought him up so well. They fulfill the mitzvah of education in ensuring that his first Bechira acts should take place at the high level. Strive for Truth. E. Dessler, Fieldman, 1988. Reprinted with permission. The following is an edited version of the complete texts.